The FBI was spying on Republicans. The Supreme Court makes a decision on conversion therapy. And does Trump deserve the Nobel Prize for ending the Israel-Hamas war? The Oval Office definitely doesn't have enough gold in it. That and more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. First, I just want to say thank you all for leaving an American flag emoji in the comments. It's been a huge help with engagement and YouTube's algorithm, which was seemingly programmed to be patriotic. It's the most glorious time of the year for fans of competitive contests, and I'm not talking about the World Series or the approaching Super Bowl. I'm of course talking about Nobel Prize season, mofos! And everyone says that U.S. President Donald Trump should win the Nobel Prize. Just listen.
Everyone says that I should get the Nobel Peace Prize for each one of these achievements.
See? Though I'm not sure if he means he should win one prize for all his combined achievements or win one prize for each of his achievements and walk around strapped with medals like prime Michael Phelps. But despite announcing that Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of his peace plan, Trump didn't win. That went to Venezuelan democracy advocate Maria Corina Machado. Wow, I can't believe Netanyahu's AI slop didn't convince the committee. Everyone loves AI slop and Benjamin Netanyahu, right? One reason Trump didn't win is because the committee that makes the decision prioritizes sustained peace over quick diplomatic wins, which explains why Barack Obama won it. But sure, Israel and Hamas agreed to part of Trump's peace plan, but when it comes to peace in that region, maybe give it a couple of days. Of course, Trump not winning didn't come as a surprise to those of you who were following the betting odds, although Machado, the actual winner, isn't even on the chart. Because why bet on something as pointless as sports when you can make big money playing the long shots during Nobel Prize season, mofos? But what no one probably expected is that Machado would dedicate her win to Trump himself. We are in the best timeline. Speaking of people that won't be recognized for spreading peace, the FBI. Republican senators say the FBI analyzed the personal cell phone data of 9 GOP lawmakers during their January 6th probe, led by Jack Smith, who looks like me if I was trying to keep the rest of my group from figuring out I was bitten by a zombie. Many were furious that the FBI was secretly monitoring politicians. Not me. I'm actually elated, because that means the FBI was secretly monitoring politicians as well as private citizens. Equity. FBI Director Kash Patel says that the FBI has fired the agents and dismantled the corruption squad involved. This is another example in a now long list of claims of how the Biden administration weaponized the Department of Justice against its political enemies. Meanwhile, Democrats accuse Pam Bondi of weaponizing the DOJ against Trump's enemies during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. As evidence, they cited former FBI Director James Comey, who pleaded not guilty after being indicted for allegedly giving false statements and obstruction. Is it going to come out that the FBI is now secretly monitoring Democrats? Man, what a bunch of dicks. And by that I of course mean Richard Nixon's. For what it's worth, Kash Patel says this will all change under his watch, his impossibly wide, unblinking watch. He says transparency is important and accountability is critical. We promised both, and this is what promises kept looks like. Well, I'm glad we know what promises kept look like, because we certainly don't know what the Epstein list looks like. If the people in this photo look hungry, it's because they were served a heaping portion of nothing burgers. Speaking of Epstein, the Supreme Court has rejected the prison sentence appeal of his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. Her only hope now of being released would be a presidential pardon. But would Trump pardon her? You may have seen headlines saying that. Trump has left the door open for pardoning Maxwell, or that he's considering it. Well, as is always the case with the mainstream media, you have to go to the source.
That means her only chance of getting out of prison is a pardon from you. Is that something you're...
Who are we talking about?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
I haven't heard the name in so long. I can say this, that I'd have to take a look at it. I would have to take a look. Did they reject that?
She wanted to appeal her conviction.
And what happened?
They said that they were not going to hear her appeal.
I see. Well, I'll take a look at it. I will speak to the DOJ. I wouldn't consider it or not consider it. I don't know anything about it.
So he said he wasn't familiar with the situation and would look into it, which frankly might be the most mature, measured response Trump has ever given as president, or possibly ever. Also, Maxwell isn't the only person hoping to receive a pardon from President Trump.
I have a lot of people who have asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy has asked me for a pardon.
Whoa! Did you just call him Diddy? Say what you will about Trump, but he's consistent when it comes to not acknowledging people when they want to change how they identify. And I have just one thing to add to that story. You may not like Diddy because of alleged gross sexual crimes. I don't like him because he sued Puffy Yumi for using Puffy in their name. We're not the same. But speaking of people changing how they identify, after the break, the Supreme Court's decision on conversion therapy. Welcome back. In an update to the episodes I did this week covering Trump deploying the National Guard to blue cities and the government shutdown, the National Guard is still in blue cities and the government is still shut down. Basically, so much is happening, it almost feels like nothing is happening. All this news is breaking people's brains, specifically Stephen Miller's.
Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
Oh no! Whatever's wrong with Mitch McConnell is now airborne. CNN cited this as a technical glitch, took a commercial break, and came back to conclude the interview with him. However, in their YouTube upload, they edited out this hiccup. So, theories started flying that Miller wasn't meant to use the term plenary authority, and someone in his earpiece told him to shut up. Plenary authority means complete and absolute power. So many feel Miller accidentally said the quiet part out loud and spilled the beans on Trump becoming a dictator and taking over the military to wage war on mayors and governors who oppose his policies. However, there are two issues with that theory. One is the idea that CNN would cover for Trump. And two, when has anyone in the Trump administration ever shut up about anything? I wish they would. What, were they afraid people would now, suddenly, for the first time ever, start accusing Trump of being fascist? And Miller has been saying stuff like this since day one of the job.
Our opponents, the media, and the whole world will soon see, as we begin to take further actions, that the powers of the president to protect our country are very substantial and will not be questioned.
Which, notably, was before President Trump willingly gave up power after losing an election in 2020, even though he claimed it was stolen. He seems less like a fascist and more like a sore loser. The biggest issue here, though, is in that previous clip, Miller was only 31. We need to find out what his nighttime skincare routine is and get RFK Jr. to ban those things. The Supreme Court scrutinized a Colorado law banning conversion therapy for gay and transgendered minors. Gay conversion therapy for minors has been banned in 24 states and Washington, D.C., with opponents calling it tantamount to torture. However, a Christian counselor in Colorado challenged this, calling it a violation of her First Amendment rights, saying gay and transgender affirming therapy is illegal. The court looked poised to overturn the ban, but as with all things Supreme Court, we just won't know until they actually release their decision. Now, putting legal rights aside for a moment, there's a general scientific consensus that gay conversion therapy doesn't work, with a UK study stating there is no robust evidence that conversion therapy can change sexual orientation or gender identity, and that conversion therapy is frequently associated with harm. But there are people who claim conversion therapy has worked for them. They're part of what's called the ex-gay movement, people who no longer identify as gay or say that they chose not to act on their attraction. However, there's also an ex-gay movement for people who were formerly gay, then said they weren't, and now state that they still are. I'm sure there's also an ex-gay movement, but every time I try to Google XXX gay, the results are oddly graphic. Of course, people who claim it worked for them often went voluntarily, while minors are often forced into it by their parents. This could open a whole other can of worms on abuse versus parental rights. There's also the other can of worms of whether or not anyone's going to try to ban institutions that try to change someone from being straight to gay, though many conservatives just call those places colleges. So we'll have to wait and see what the court decides. And while we wait, we can place our bets in a game of fantasy SCOTUS. Because why bet on something as pointless as sports when you can make big money playing the long shots during Supreme Court docket season, mofos? But what do you think? Leave your comments below with that American flag emoji. And before you go, check out this other video from my show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming, about what makes someone a real American. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.